Well, hello and welcome to Office Hours number 710.
Man,
I mean, we're going to grow old doing this.
we already are, man. We are the White Hair Club, I think.
Yes, I think so. How you doing today?
I'm excellent, man. I'm excellent. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, you too. You too. Now, you just finished
in April, like in person.
In person. Yeah, we're going to be out in New York, and we're going to be talking about that here with our first guest in just a minute. But before we get there, yeah, you just finished partial filming of episode 8 for our Office Hours on Apple TV. How'd that go? Yeah, you were in Vegas at the studio.
Oh man, as always, it's a delight, and the quality of guests and the conversations and more importantly, some of the side conversations and the dinner, and where you really get to sit down and talk to people, and it just is always the relationships and the people you meet and old friends that you see. So it's always just a lot of fun to do that in person.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to coming out next week and finishing that up. So this is going to be good. Okay. Yeah. And I guess without further ado, why don't we bring Peter Goldstein in? Because we got some time, speaking about old friends and getting together and getting the whole tribe together again here. Peter, welcome to the show.
Right. Speaking of old and white hair and no hair, here we are. Good to be here, guys.
Absolutely. Good to have you here. Now, you've got something going on April 15th, and I want to just kind of jump right into this because I think we're going to want to spend some time just creating a little buzz around this. The IPO Summit 2025 is happening in New York at NASDAQ Headquarters, and you're kind of the pointy end of that spear. First of all, just a quick question. Why NASDAQ? Why are we hosting this at NASDAQ? I think that's going to be a useful piece of information because it sets the context for some other stuff.
Yeah, so plain thanks. So I'm super excited because this is a vision that, we're all entrepreneurs here, and there's just something great about having a vision and taking the action steps to realize it and have it come to reality. So the event is, as it's named, the IPO Summit. It's designed for CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, and management teams who want to either explore or are already committed to the IPO process. And we're bringing together kind of the brightest and best in minds at NASDAQ. And why NASDAQ? For me, it's iconic. It's one of the two, most world-renowned stock exchanges in the world. They have just a phenomenal place where we're going to be gathering, which is actually called the IPO room. And so we'll be doing it at NASDAQ, experience there where we'll be together for a full day of immersive knowledge from market intelligence, from industry leaders, networking, informational exploration, and then some fun around going down and having a tower shot, which can only be done in one place in the world. And we'll all have our pictures up on the tower overlooking Times Square, and then a cocktail and networking and a social event followed by a mastermind dinner in New York.
That is going to be something else. Go ahead, Rhett.
We were talking about this the other night at dinner, and tell us a little bit about who this is really for, because this is an exclusive event. It's really for a lot, for people, top entrepreneurs. Tell me about that. Tell us who it's for and sort of the vision and why now and why this group of this type of person that you're looking for.
Yeah, so we're focusing, Rhett, on entrepreneurial CEOs and founders. And this is really designated more for what they would call small cap or micro cap listed companies. Mm-hmm. So this isn't for giant unicorns and venture capital and private equity backed companies. This is for the world that I've lived in for the last 25 years, which is more the emerging growth space. And so, there are many entrepreneurs. I was one of them. I took two of my own companies public. And I always had the dream and the vision of being at a senior exchange like NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. And so we want to impart that knowledge because there's a big misunderstanding, right, and Blaine, that you don't have to be a unicorn to do an IPO and to list on a senior exchange. Actually, there were more micro cap and small cap IPOs done by volume of number this past year than there were, large cap. So it's really a robust market. In addition, there are foreign companies listing in the U.S. So we have companies flying in from Malaysia, from Singapore, from around the world, and of course from around the United States and Canada.
Yeah, that's going to be quite a gathering. I'm coaching right now a CEO that they're just, they're in the midst of, and hopefully get the trigger pulled on it this afternoon of an IPO listing. They're going through all of the hoops that are associated with that. And I have worked with a board of a med tech company that is positioning itself for a listing right now. And what's interesting, and this is my listing, and this is kind of a closing thought here. When you said IPO Summit, I heard Ideal Summit. And just I was kind of like, well, yeah, that actually that's where dreams happen. That's kind of the pinnacle, and it's kind of like the flag. We ring the bell, and we're off to rocking here. Yeah, your company, MS Capital. Just real quick, I want to be sure that we don't lose an opportunity for you to plug what you're doing here, Peter, outside of the summit itself. Is there anything that you'd like to say about MS Capital and what you do there?
Well, so I have two companies that I founded at this current stage that are related. MS Capital is a pre-IPO investment fund. So we actually invest directly into companies that are committed to an IPO. And Exchange Listing, which is hosting the IPO Summit, is an IPO advisory firm. So we work playing with management teams like you were talking about through the entire process. We help them prepare, usually 18 to 24 months ahead of their listing, and take them through all the different elements to have them be educated before they even get to the execution phase. And then we work with them directly on the execution. We maintain relationships in the entire ecosystem. So with NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, the investment bankers, the auditors, and basically every aspect of the ecosystem that's needed to put on a successful IPO, we bring in, help manage, and kind of quarterback, if you will, the process. It's incredibly complicated, and it's fraught with chaos and variable. And so, being experienced, I didn't have the benefit of a guide when I took my first companies public. And so that's why I created Exchange Listing, was to help to really bring that guidance that's needed in today's market from the side of the table with the founder and the CEO and the board members and those shareholders.
That's great. Folks, you can find out more about what Peter's up to at exchangelistingllc.com. And I think Gigi's going to run a Sharon down on the bottom around this. There we go. And the IPO Summit, you can find out more about that as well, exchangelistingllc.com. And Peter directly at petergoldstein.co. You're going to have all kinds of stuff there that you're going to really appreciate finding out about. So, Rhett, anything to close out here?
No, man, I'm just looking forward to having everybody in New York, and actually this will be really nice not to have to speak or participate. I can just participate and I can learn. That'll be a nice change, not to have to organize and get up there and talk. So that'll be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing that heavy lifting now, right, for you, right? So it's great. We're really looking forward, obviously, to having you guys there and this community. And one thing I want to say in closing, I think there's great value for entrepreneurs to get knowledge, even if they're not committed to an IPO. And a number of people that are going to be in the room are very dynamic entrepreneurs, and they want to have the knowledge base. And I just have a quick saying in closing that I'll share with you is that if your company's IPO ready, you're ready for anything in business. So just learning about what it takes to be in that position are also the entrepreneurs and the founders and the CEOs that we want to attract to the event.
Yeah. Perfect. Can't think of a better place to make that happen.
Yeah.
Rhett, go ahead. Step on your toes there.
No. I was just saying, to Peter's point, right? If you have those basics done, you can survive anything. You can do anything, right? If you have that, all the things you have to do to get an IPO done, and you're solid.
Yeah. So, folks, check it out and find out more information. Peter, look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for being on the show.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Take care. Good. Well, our second guest is not quite here yet. I think Gigi's pinging him to find out where he's at. But in the meantime, the whole idea of an IPO, you didn't take your company public, did you? You did.
That's good. Yeah.
So you know a little bit about what that's about.
It's grueling, but really and painful. And you see all the warts and you see all the things that you didn't do well. And but it was a great lesson. I mean, it was like getting my MBA, right? It was like getting my an education in business, because I wasn't a business major or a business person to start with. And but boy, did we learn. But it's like Peter was making a point of, is it helped us be a better company, helped us run it better, or helped us be more financially responsible. The systems that we had to put in place, the checks and the balances and the accountability that we had to put in place was really good for us. Yeah.
And as a CEO and as a leader in that, in a company that is making that shift, that is a hell of an education to be able to have access to.
Yeah,
it really is. So I guess our next guest is here, Adam Rosen, co-founder at Email Outreach Company. This is, Adam, I'm looking forward to this conversation for a real specific reason. Cold email outreach. People think about that today, and it's kind of like, isn't that just kind of what we did a long time ago? Is it still relevant? Is it still valid? Cold email outreach? You cracked the nut on this in a very interesting way. So the short answer to that question is yes, it is still relevant. How come? What'd you do differently?
Yeah, we get a pigeon from this really great area in Hawaii, and then we attach a nice note to it, and then we tell it where to go on the mainland, and then it delivers it, and it only takes about 3 weeks to get there. But once that note gets there, we get a great response rate.
and it smells like jasmine.
Exactly. No, so there's a lot of people that will say to me, number one, is cold email dead? If not, number two, isn't it going to be going away? And the reality is that one, yes, it actually can be dead. You're right. Like, there's in a lot of ways it doesn't work if you don't know what you're doing. If you don't do it effectively, you're not going to get results. Just like if you run an Instagram ad, or you're trying to do well with SEO, or you got a billboard in Times Square, if you don't know how to use that medium, the results won't be there. And then, to the second point, is it going away? Quite the opposite. It just continues to expand year over year. And you look at some of these great technologies out there that are raising a boatload of money in the email marketing space from some very smart, sophisticated investors. So if they don't think it's going anywhere, I don't think anyone listening to this should think it is either.
Yeah. Fair enough. What is, so you've got two ventures going on now, right?
Yep.
So you've got EOC Works, and then you've got the Nomad Cloud. And talk about those two different businesses and the sort of focus of each. And I'm so curious about the Nomad Cloud in terms of, you've got 200,000 subscribers to it. I'd love to know what it does and what the audience that it serves, and tell us about it.
Yeah, so the short of it is that I started my current agency, my email company, email outreach company, about 4 years ago. And as I started it with my current co-founder, who's also the co-founder of my first tech startup, he was already in Florence, Italy. So I ended up going to see him, thinking I'd be out there for about a month, and we'd see basically, does this business have any legs? And then, fast forward 4 years later, we've been kind of traveling the world wherever we want to live while we build the business. So how that feeds into Nomad Cloud is one of the things I would constantly hear from business leaders, entrepreneurs, is how do I create a successful newsletter? And I always had hints of what you should do to create a successful newsletter just from my cold email experience, but I never had like a truly successful newsletter. And my business partner and I, we were always talking about people would always ask us, like, how do you travel the world and make money? And we always want to figure out some way to share how we're able to do it for the people that also want to do the same thing. And we stumbled across this newsletter called Nomad Cloud. And we ended up buying the newsletter, had about 5,000 subscribers on it at the time. This was in January of 24. We ended up building it up to about 250,000 subscribers, what we got it to. We ended up selling that business in December of 2024, so about 3 or 4 months ago now. But it was a heck of a learning. And now newsletter is actually a big part of my agency. So not only do we do cold email outreach, but we'll also grow newsletters for our customers. So we got about 15, 16 newsletters that we've built, whether it's for our customers or for ourselves, that we do everything from growing the subscribers, creating the content, etc.
Okay, we need to talk.
Yeah, because you are quite a nomad, Rhett. You're traveling the whole time. I don't think I've ever seen you in one place more than once.
Well, that's what happens when you have when you're a wanted man. You can't sleep in the same room every night or the same bed every night, right? You have to
exactly.
That works. Yeah, that's fine. Adam, I want to circle back if I could here, just on that email question about you. And I said you kind of cracked the code on this in one sense. My agency, has done some cold email outreach with modicum success. It's actually worked, but not matched my expectations, certainly. What would you say is the differentiator in the way that you actually work?
Cold email in the old days used to be relatively easy. Like during my first tech startup, we got the biggest brands in the world as customers. We raised money through it. We found a company that bought ours through it. And even the first few years of this current agency, cold email was a heck of a lot easier. So from like the infrastructure that was required to landing the inbox versus spam, to getting quality lists, to copywriting, you name it. It used to be a lot easier. You buy a list, maybe you verify it a little bit, you press send on a mail merge, you just change the first name, you sit back, wait, and you're going to get replies. The level of difficulty today, 10x does not even begin to describe it. Like I'll have some people reach out to me saying, can you give me some tips with cold email? Or I want to create my own cold email agency. Can you give me tips? And I try to share the best tips I can. But one of the tips I share is that it's really freaking hard, and it's gotten pretty expensive if you want to do it right. Like I tell people, I'm like, we're spending over $100,000 a month to service our customers. We have 15 employees, like some of the smartest people when it comes to email and go to market. Things are changing every single day. Outlook is letting emails come through. Outlook is not letting emails come through. Google is making this change or that change. You could send 50 emails a day from an inbox. You could send 10 emails a day from the inbox. It's changing so rapidly where if you're not a true student of the game, you just don't stand a chance anymore. So like what I always tell people is there's no silver bullet. It's about doing a bunch of things well. And in each of those things is going to give you a 1% to maybe a 5% lift. But there's not like one piece of copy you write is going to save the world. It's a bunch of doing a bunch of little things well consistently and staying on top of those changes.
Yeah, little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Exactly.
Adam, real quick, I know this is probably the last question, but what for people who don't have a newsletter started yet, what are some of the your key thoughts on how somebody can start? I know bringing you on is a solution, but let's say you've got a startup person or they're just now trying to build their social profile and build a community. What are some things that are the keys to newsletters? What are some of those key things that people have to know?
The number one thing I see from people is they focus too much on the brand versus the value they provide. So what do I mean by that? Like my email outreach company newsletter is called the Cold Email Marketing Newsletter. We have about 50,000 subscribers on it. We get really good engagement on it. But it's not like the email outreach company newsletter. That's written by me, really my team, but I'm the face of it. But it's not like it's the email outreach company newsletter. It's focused on the value of you want to learn cold email marketing. We're going to share that with you. It's not me pitching my brand. Brand is secondary. And I see a lot of people that want to start a newsletter and they want it all to be about their company brand, their company brand, their company brand. And the reality is no one cares about your company brand. And it's not just because you're a small startup. It's like, look, if Spotify starts a newsletter tomorrow, nobody's going to subscribe because, oh, cool, it's Spotify. But if Spotify started a newsletter and it's like, insider tips on the hottest artists in the world, you're going to be like, oh, this is cool. Like, I want to know what, it's funny, the artist that came to mind was like Aerosmith. I don't know why Aerosmith came to mind. But if you want to know what Aerosmith,
I'm glad it did though.
To find out about them, or if you want to know about, Sabrina Carpenter for the young folks, that would be much more appealing versus here's, I'm Spotify. You should care about me because I'm Spotify. Nobody cares about your brand. They care about the value you can provide. So that would be number one.
Fascinating. And yeah, I love that. Folks, you can find out more about what Adam is up to. I'm assuming that, there we go, eocworks.com, eocworks.com. I mean, I shamelessly do this. Reach out, truly reach out, ping that website and see what's there. I got a hunch if you're an entrepreneur of any kind, you're going to find something there that is actually going to land and serve you well. So, Adam, thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. Sorry that David wasn't here today. He's tied up elsewhere, but I'm sure we'll get you connected on a program. Maybe this one again will get you back on where he's available.
Yeah, I'm talking in a few hours anyway, so it's good to see you guys. I appreciate you guys. And
forget about it.
Exactly. Don't tell Dave I said this, but I'd rather be with you guys right now.
Hey, thank you. That warms our hearts.
Dave, we love you too. If Dave was on here, it'd be like,
I don't know if this works or not, but there we go. There you go.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there. That's good.
I can do that. I don't know. Maybe I can't do it.
I can't do the hearts. I don't know.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Do it. Cool. All right, guys. I appreciate you. Take care.
You bet, Adam. Thanks. That was fun. That was a interesting segment because I have tried cold emails. I brought a guy in a couple of years ago, right after the pandemic, when we started retooling everything we were doing, and I didn't have a list at that point in time because that was not how we marketed previously. And he said, let's do we'll do cold emails. We'll segment and we'll do it. Crickets. Absolute crickets. And yeah, it was going, well, okay, that was interesting. So I'm glad to see that there's somebody out there that has actually, cracked the code in a way here that can make that work, because it's a really cost-effective way to get things out there.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about it is and like you, I've tried things like that before with very little success. And I think as entrepreneurs and particularly the people he works with, there's so much out there. There's so many, funnels and emails and all these things. And I think having somebody that you can trust to go to actually get it done, because there are a lot of people marketing those services. There are a lot of people marketing that kind of help. And to be able to actually have somebody on the show that actually knows what they're doing is, because I think people can waste a lot of money on those kind of things. And I mean, I don't know how many pitches I get. I know you get them too. I get pitches for email and newsletter help and podcast help, all this other stuff all the time. And it
4 or 5 an hour.
Yeah, it fills your inbox. And so it's really good to have somebody on that you could actually trust to do it. So if you're listening, reach out to Adam, because I think you could actually get somebody that actually knows what they're doing. So
perfect. And speaking of somebody that knows what they're doing, Dev Nag, and here you come, Dev. Yeah, great to have you here.
Hey guys, great to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
You're working here in the AI space, which is a really interesting, and you've got I think a fascinating but just a platform that seems to be relatively autonomous. And this is kind of I think, an interesting question, and I think a conversation here, because part of the fear is that this thing can it'll escape out into the wild and run rampant here. But agentic AI, basically becomes an agent that is relatively autonomous. How does your platform QueryPal actually position this, and what's the business? What's the value proposition that you're bringing into the organizations you work with?
Yeah, so what we do is, like, if you get any support emails, technical support or product support or billing support, we basically are able to answer those questions on behalf of your company and respond to the customer within 1-2 minutes, as opposed to having to wait 2 or 3 days in some cases, right? If it takes like a while for the agent to get around to it. And obviously for companies, like, they're able to handle far more traffic with the team they have in place. They can handle a scaling kind of demand without scaling cost, which is obviously the best of both worlds. So agentic AI is kind of like the buzzword of the year for AI in general. So what is it? If you think about ChatGPT as being sort of the first generation of AI, what kind of came out in 2022 is mind blowing and kind of shattered a lot of conceptions of what was possible. But that kind of AI is very passive. It's kind of like a tool, right? You have to ask it a question. It'll come back to you with an answer pretty fast, right? But it kind of does like, one step at a time. Like you ask a question, you get back an answer, you kind of follow up, it gives you the second answer and so forth, right? It's kind of like a passive advisor because it doesn't do anything, right? It basically gives you a bunch of words. You have to like go and do that stuff yourself out in the real world or on some other applications. And agentic AI is actually the next level here. So agentic AI is actually able to like, look at a problem at a very high level and map out the strategy for solving that problem, right? It's not just basically like a one shot, here's a quick response. It's trying to say like, okay, if we have a problem here, what is a detailed strategy to get there? And then actually execute on each one of those steps, right? So in our case, customer support, we're looking at like, internal, like, documentation and past tickets to kind of craft the right response, like maybe looking at other systems. We're able to do all these different steps together underneath our platform, right? As opposed to having like, the support agent have to like, use a ChatGPT type application, like, basically like walk through this like long laborious process, right? Basically a one shot will do the whole thing for you from scratch. So if old AI is kind of like the passive advisor, agentic AI is like a proactive doer, right? It's able to do all these things in a proactive way across many, many steps that the old AI just could not do.
Yeah.
So how long, like if I use this in my customer service or my tech support, company, how long does it take to onboard something like this and really teach it everything my one customer service person knows? Right.
Well, it's pretty fast. Yeah.
Can never take a holiday and can never, go anywhere.
Exactly. It handles the weekends, handles seasonal spikes and so forth, right? So typically it takes, a couple of weeks to get started. So the integration is pretty fast. And so what happens after we get integrated with the customer, so we have a lot of, big customers like JetBrains is like one of our biggest ones. Once they get on board, right? So we're able to like, draft kind of responses for their agents to look at and give us feedback. But that's when like the learning really starts because we can actually like look at what we put out there. Here's like our kind of a guess at what you want to send out. But then the agents actually send out their own response as well, right? And we're able to see both things. We're like, here's like our guess, and here's what you actually send out. What's the delta between the two things, right? We're able to learn from what we did wrong. It's almost like an intern or an apprentice saying, like, I think I should do this to like, carve the wood the way that you did. How are you actually doing? And I'll like kind of like watch the difference and learn from that, right? So watching those differences.
Can it listen to calls and everything else?
It doesn't do any call center type stuff right now. It's only email and chat, but that's in our future for sure. And so like, we're definitely going to move in that direction where a lot of the voice calls will turn into like, kind of AI focused calls, and only the most like difficult or complex questions get through to humans where they're really needed to serve that call.
That's interesting. The agentic AI and ChatGPT is a great example. It's text based, and it's linear as a consequence of that.
Yes.
Text flows past, present, future. So the search queries are always on that longitudinal time arrow.
Yep.
With agentic AI, it seems as if you're stepping outside of the timeline a bit, and this is where the intuition and the autonomous decision making comes into play. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. So, like in our case, for example, like a lot of technical questions, especially, are screenshots. Like people will send in a screenshot of their application to like circle something in red and be like, the entire text is like one question mark. Or like an unhappy emoji, right? That's the entire support email. So in our case, we have to say like, oh, we can't look at some text and like throw it in ChatGPT. It's like, what does the image actually mean? What did the customer say like maybe last week that gives us some context about what the problem is today? And how do we respond? Like what's their emotional state? What's the tone and persona of this company in general? Handling customers who are unhappy, like are there special discounts? There's a lot of context that goes into play here, pulling all together. And that goes far beyond sort of the linear text models that we've kind of gotten used to.
Yeah. Just real quick as a follow-on to that, where do you see this going? Say, and I know it's accelerating really rapidly here, so I'm not going to put a 5-year timeline on this, but like within the next 6 to 12 months, the whole notion of spatial AI starts to come into play. And where do you see this migration actually evolving? What's the evolution that you see? I don't want to put an endpoint on it. Like it's going to end up here. What's the evolutionary trail?
I think there's a bunch of dimensions. So one big dimension that we're seeing now with agentic AI is the duration or the length of tasks that can be done has gotten longer and longer. So it basically doubles, I think, every 7 months now. So at one point it was like, it can handle like a 1-minute task, then like a 2-minute task, then like a 4-minute task. Now it's up to about an hour. You can actually write entire like, multi-thousand line of code programs with agentic AI without any human involvement at all. It's like kind of stops out there, but it's getting better every single day. There's brand new like, commercial models from like Anthropic and OpenAI and a whole bunch of open source models that are like all competing this like, maelstrom of competition right now. But they're pushing the frontier so fast. Every single week, the frontier gets pushed a little bit further. There's like a new benchmark. Gemini 2.5 came out from Google 2 days ago. That's not state of the art for a bunch of things, but by next week it'll be like the second or third best. It's like watching a Formula One race where it's like all the drivers are so close together and like they're just edging each other kind of back and forth. And there's no like kind of winner who's there for like a year, even like much less like 20 or 30 years like Microsoft was, for example. So I think we're seeing a lot of competition, a lot of lengthening of the type of tasks that can be done, a lot more integration too. So I think the world had already kind of got prepared by having like a lot of text out there. So like, all these models like ChatGPT could train on Wikipedia and Twitter and all the internet out there. Now we're seeing them connect to APIs to be able to take actions and read real-time data, right? That's like the next level of integration. And once AI is connected to the world in that level, we're going to see all kinds of new use cases that we didn't have available to us before.
Yeah, that's great. That's a fascinating time to be alive, as the Chinese would say.
Absolutely.
I mean, you live in interesting times, I think is the actual translated quote. Yeah. So Dev, people can find out more about you at querypal.com. Oh,
querypal.com.
Rhett, you have something here, please.
I just want to ask, like, I know this is an unfair question and hate to, but you're an AI founder, so I gotta ask, where do you see this? I know a lot of, I was at an AI conference again last week, and then the week before that I was at a CHRO conference, and obviously this is every single panel, every single conversation is about this and how disruptive all of this is. From your perspective, as a CEO, what should other CEOs be thinking about in terms of AI, and not only how to use it, but how to integrate it, and then where do people fit into this ultimately? Because this can really help you immensely as a business. Talk about that a little bit, and I don't think it's going to replace people. I think it's only going to enhance our work. But I think that is a real worry.
Yeah. So like, every technological shift over the past 200 years has had some impact on like, how people have to interact with like, the labor market and with other people and so forth. And so like, imagine, computers changed how we like, deal with like bank tellers. Now we have ATMs. The mobile shift changed how taxi drivers look around at their market because Uber came along, was now enabled. AI will also have a whole bunch of impacts on different industries. And in some ways, I think it's like, more in our industries, right? It's affecting like, white collar work in a way that never has been touched before. You hear software engineers coming out of college feeling like the job market's harder now by a lot more than it was like ever in their like kind of history or kind of what they heard about from like, other generations. I do think that like, we haven't figured out quite how humans and AI will work together. So we've done a lot of work before. We've had to do a lot of like work that was essentially grunt work that AI will take off our plates. But I think our role will change into being sort of the context masters, right? So like, what is AI really bad at? It's context, right? All the unsaid preferences and constraints and beliefs that we have as human beings. When I talk to you, if I throw out like a pop culture reference, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. It's going to like change how you interpret what I'm saying. It's going to be like this unspoken context between us. AI doesn't have that, right? The unspoken stuff is not in the training data, right? It's kind of blind. It's like the dark matter of AI, right? So how humans are able to take that dark matter and bring it into the kind of like the view of AI and make it like part of that discussion will be a big part of our role in working with AI in the next few years, right? That context bridging between human needs and human values and what AI is able to do. Otherwise, the AI will go off in like some direction that's not tied to our actual goals because it's missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, perfect. Folks, you can find out more about what Dev is up to at querypal.com. And it's fascinating. I just love this whole AI space. I really do. I'm just intrigued as hell by it. I mean, it's just fascinating to me.
It's an amazing time to be in technology.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. And as we just kind of move forward here, the whole idea of context, being able to, in communication work, some of the things that I do is I organize people's thinking around all conversations take place in something called the BOO, the background of the obvious. And the background of the obvious is different depending on where you're at. Hospitals have a background of the obvious that is different than what a stock exchange would have. But that BOO, we use the acronym BOO because it can actually come out and scare the bejesus out of you if you're not careful. It'll knock all kinds of stuff off the shelf if you're not paying attention to the background of the obvious. And that's context. And that's to be able to begin to tap into that, I think is going to be it's a phase shift in the AI world. It really is a phase shift. It's not a linear migration. So,
yeah, it's the final frontier, I think, of AI for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Dev, thanks for being on the show. Greatly appreciate it. And look forward to talking to you again at some point in time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys.
You bet. Take care. Wow. Fascinating stuff. I love these conversations, Rhett. I absolutely love them.
You know, and I know we're going to get to our final, like, what are our takeaways, but I'll jump ahead in that because I just, these tools that we have access to today is so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I'm not scared. They don't worry me.
No, they don't. No.
I think it's exciting because I mean, think about how, as a business now, you can compete with the big players in your industry. If you use these tools right and you use these tools effectively and you learn how to integrate them into your business, I mean, just like we had when we were talking to the previous guest, I mean, to Adam, if you use email correctly and you use newsletters correctly and you use these AI tools correctly, you can do things that we weren't able to do 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, right? We didn't have access to that kind of data. We didn't have the money to have access to that kind of data, to those kind of tools. And so now it's an amazing opportunity.
Well, now you have an opportunity here. If you were to take that, synthesize it down into a takeaway, what would it be?
Learn how to use these tools. Build a team around you that uses these tools, that knows how to use these tools effectively for your business.
Yeah, I kind of piggyback on that. I mean, when I commented on Peter's point about IPO Summit, and I heard Ideal Summit.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has ideals that they organize around. The things that are aspirational. But if we can learn to use some of these emerging tools elegantly and intelligently, access to and realization of those ideals becomes not only more probable, but it happens to be, I think, more likely that it will occur faster than we ever thought possible, because we're doing things in a little bit different way, and we're not relying on a cause effect linear piece. This becomes a quantum phase jump in frequency, and consequence of that is we get there a lot faster.
You said it so much more beautifully than I.
Well, hey, I'm standing on the shoulders here. You built the foundation.
Well said. Well said.
Okay. Rhett, thank you. I love doing the show with you, and I look forward to personally being with you back April 15th at the IPO Summit in New York, and Friday at NASDAQ, at the NASDAQ Headquarters, NASDAQ in the NASDAQ room, at the IPO room. Okay?
That's right. All right.
Friday is tomorrow, and Friday is Dave's day for training. So those of you that are tuning in now, make sure that and we're going to run the ticker across that, GG, just so that we've got a visual for it. There we go. Free training Friday at 6 a.m. Pacific time. And shameless plug for something I'm up to. You see that mastermind QR there. We run a mastermind program twice a year. It's a year-long program. You can find out more about it by scanning that or going to Leadership Mindset Mastermind that you're seeing on the scroll there. There's a waiting list for the next one right now. Matter of fact, there's waiting lists for the next two. So that is neither here nor there, because things are always shifting and moving. But get yourself some information about that and sign up for the waiting list.
Where is that? It's right there. Right there.
It's back here. And we'll see you on the next episode of Office Hours. I'm just thrilled to be able to co-host this with you, Rhett. And Thursdays are my day on this one. You take care.
Thank you, Mike.